A very good evening to one and all. Thank you so much for coming on this beautiful, the weather is incredible. So thank you so much for coming and to hear from these incredible collectors. I'm as excited as you, if not more. So I'd like to invite all the panelists to sit on the stage, and I can kind of introduce them one by one and kind of really tell you all about why we're doing what we're doing today. Please, Salvatore, Auntie Asma, Masha, please. Thank you. So if I can tell you all why we're here today, to collect, for me, is to embrace stories, is to hold a piece of time within your house and your home. It is beauty, it is meaning into my life. Every work of art is a dialogue, an imprint of an artist's mind and heart. And as collectors, we become custodians of these narratives, shaping the cultural landscapes of our time. Good evening. My name is Shafeena Yusuff Ali. I am the director and founder of Risk Art Initiative, a collector, and will be moderating the session today on the joy of collecting. For me, collecting art is pure joy. It is the thrill of discovery. It is the love of storytelling. It is the privilege of living with history. Tonight, we are joined by three incredible collectors, each with a distinct and inspiring journey. Salvatore, a seasoned investor and strategic advisor who has spent over 14 years between the Middle East and Africa, building a collection that reflects the dynamic cultures of both regions. Say hi. Asma Seddeq. Auntie Asma is a poet, a cultural thinker, a literary leader who has been deeply engaged in the intellectual and artistic fabric of the UAE, shaping conversations on literature, art, and heritage. Thank you, Auntie Asma, for being here. Masha Usenok, a collector whose passion centers on the representation of women in contemporary art, collecting works that resonates with identity, history, and emotional connection. She also champions art accessibility through her initiative, artsocial.ae. Thank you so much, Masha, for being here. Together today, we are going to explore what it means to be a collector, not just from the perspective of investment, but as a way of seeing, engaging, and even shaping the world. Let me, I think, start with a general question to all the panelists. We all began collecting for different kind of reasons. Sometimes it starts with a single piece of art that changes everything, but over time, a collection becomes a reflection of who we are. I'd love to hear from each one of you. How would you describe the philosophy behind your collection? Is there a common thread that kind of ties your collection together? Salvatore, can I start with you?
I think the first is the love at first sight. So when you see a piece and you know that you need it. This happened for me a few years ago at Abu Dhabi Art at Selwa's stand. I saw a piece by Ahmed Farid, and I just said, I saw it, I said, I love it. I walked around, I came back, I talked to Selwa about it, I still loved it. I walked around again, I met the artist, and I loved it. So it was just that love at first sight. The second is when I have a similar love at first sight with an artist. So sometimes I will go to a show and I will see this artist's work and say, I know that I want something of this in my collection, maybe not from that exact show, but something from them. This happened for me early on with Abdul Qadir Al Rais. There was a show in Manar Al Tasadia, and I saw this, a 5-10 meter tall piece, and I was like, this is amazing, I need something. I was very young at the time. I was like, I obviously can't afford this huge one. And then just a year later, they had a small pieces of his. And so I was like, oh my God, I can get one from this artist. That was so exciting to be able to do that. And then I think the third is whenever it's, I would say, autobiographical. So I collect mostly from the UAE and from Tanzania, which are my two homes. And I often think that a collection is like the table of contents to the story of your life. And it's the ideas or the emotions that you want to be surrounded by. And so sometimes if there's a concept that I'm thinking about or a location I'm thinking about, then seeing something that represents that, and every morning I can wake up and be reminded of that. And then the fourth and final one I would just say is around kind of the relationship building. A lot of times there's an artist that I become friends with and I want to support their practice, or there's a gallerist and I want to support that.
That's amazing. What about you, Auntie Asma? You've been collecting for so many years. What would you say is kind of the common thread or the philosophy of your collection? If someone were to walk into your house and see your collection, what is the common kind of thread that they would find in your collection?
Thank you, Shafeena, to invite us, and thank you everybody. It's here today to listening to our story. And I think for me, the collector is like a story, like literature for me. It's especially in we have in Quran, إن الله جميل يحب الجمال. The God that's beauty, he like to see the beauty around us, and that one, that's my philosophy in my life. Yani always I take when I see something beauty. Sometimes it's catch me, I buy it and I take it. In the beginning, when I start to art, and don't forget, in 40 years UAE, it's still we don't have the art. It's one part, very important part in the house before the religion. We don't buy the figures, we don't buy the things. It's always we care about what we're hanging in our house, what we'll put. That's why when I start with the Oriental artist. Now I have a big collection of Orientalists, and always when I saw them, I feel it's part of me. It's our tradition, and from the West opinion about us, and that's why I go to Sotheby's, Christie's, and auction to buy that one, because I want to see their how they look at us, yani, how they look about the Haram Lake and Salam Lake, and how their the idea. That's why it's when I begin to hang in my wall, everything it's Oriental. I start with the Oriental, but always my door, my home, it's Arabic door. Always, any house I live, anybody open my door, it will see Emirati doors. Always in the right and lies, always manuscript of Quran. Always, it's my first impression. It's my first identity in in what I believe about it. And for me, the art, it's I buy what I like. Honestly, I am not considered to one thing. I start with the Oriental. After I start with the furniture, we says, we cans. I start to buy the saver. I tried everything, because always I said my home, it's mine. I eclectic everything to make my identity. That's why it's difficult when you come my home. You say who I am. It's eclectic from everywhere, from east and west.
I think we all know Auntie Asma incredibly as a poet, and as her literature and her knowledge of literature is incredible. So, Auntie Asma, does your love of poetry and literature influence the art that you buy and collect?
Yes, of course, because you know the story behind it, and that's why it's sometimes it's influence from the writer also, especially when you read a book from North Africa. Always the influence from France and from Europe, and that time, that period. It's for us, it's something it's very interesting to go and to visit also. Always anything we read it, we go to visit a museum, or we visit the houses for the artist, or we make a search about it. I think one of the part is make knowledge for us. And that's why this year I try with my teacher. We did a book, a history of art, because it's after all knowledge I have and all what I study, I want to give it for the people come back. But through what the period what I am, what I try to build myself and my educated and my myself. That's why I want to give it for another people, and that's why I think where I am here in a beauty place, and I believe you should buy what you want, what you feel it. It's you are there is a connect between you and between the art. And now with the Abu Dhabi art and Salwa, one of the influencer for me. She came with my husband one time. You remember Salwa? 40 years ago. When you buy two artists and you come, and when I come my home, you and my husband, you hang it in my wall to Lebanese artists now, one of the important. And they said, who is this artist? But she decided with my husband, and they hang the first years you open your gallery. I don't know you remember or not, yani. You are one of the influencer in our family and our houses. Thank you, Salwa, yani, for that. And inshallah.
Auntie Asma is one of those wonderful people who kind of has so much knowledge and loves sharing it as well. So I want to move on to Masha now. And I know that she's so new to the UAE art scene. And for me, that's superbly interesting to see the UAE art scene from a whole new perspective. And I'd love for you to speak a little bit about, your collection so far and kind of, how you view the art scene in the UAE and what you see when you look at it.
Thank you for having me today. Actually, I'm a very beginner collector. Mostly collect the pieces from the artist I know myself, or like I believe the gallery who like suggest me. I don't dig too much like in investment strategies or this. And for me, it's important to see these pieces like complemented each other. And also, like you mentioned, after a while I realized I mostly like collect from the women, or like I want to see how women now looks in the art, because for sure it will be very different from Orientalist art, for example, how they looks like. And I always thinking what will represent our time, what like how we can capture this time, and like how artists put this to the artwork. So this is very important for me from the art I bought. Also, maybe different techniques they represent the artist itself. So in here in UAE, actually, this is also, I have some feeling that it's different techniques which artists try to use and like, to show, to like preserve the history. And this is like, for me, is very important for my like story.
Thank you so much, Masha. I mean, it's really interesting to see how, as a young collector, you kind of are trying to even build that thread that you want to see when someone walks into your house and sees your collection. Thank you. I want to go back to Salvatore and kind of being in the investment and the financial industry. I'm sure kind of a lot of people ask you this kind of questions on the investment strategies, or do you see your collection in that perspective? Or if you want to advise or even talk to somebody who kind of want to see art as an investment, what are the questions that you would expect him or her to ask, and what would you answer them?
I try not to, which is difficult because that is my job, to make good investments. And so with each of the pieces, I think what I've seen the most is an emerging artist, and it's been exciting to now, almost, I've been in the UAE 14 years and in art, 5 or 8 years. It's been interesting. Some of the earliest pieces that I've gotten from artists that I'd never heard of. There's one local female Emirati artist that I got the first piece that she ever sold, Amaha, and I loved that piece, and it was a big, beautiful one I had in the bedroom. And for a couple of years, I didn't hear anything about her, but I still loved the piece. And then suddenly I saw she had a solo show at NYU Abu Dhabi, and then the Friends of Abu Dhabi Emerging Art Program selected her, and then she got represented by Tabari. And so to see that kind of growth is first and foremost exciting for her, because I love the piece, and it's exciting to see her opinion and her perspective more. But investment financial-wise, like having an artist from early on and being able to build it over time is exciting. And so I do think that when you're looking for art as an investment, that the only two kind of ways to do it is either blue chip art, that's probably not going to go down at all, or emerging, which 95% of it probably won't go up at all, but some of it will. And I think now, as I've gotten a little bit more mature in my collecting, instead of looking at that growth happening passively, I'm also thinking of how I can more actively be involved in that. So with some of the artists that I like and I care for, how can I then support them to go from emerging? So every year, because I mostly collect the Tanzanian art, I always bring a Tanzanian artist to either Abu Dhabi Art or to Art Dubai, so that they can kind of see that, trying to help them to do shows, trying to help them, again, first and foremost, because I care about them and I want their art to be seen. But there's one artist, her name's Tura, and she one time asked me, like, why are you so helpful to me and why are you doing that? I said, well, I'm your biggest collector, so if your pieces increase in value, that's helping me. But to be honest, that's not the main reason. It's just that I want more people in the world to see it.
Thank you so much. I want to move on to Auntie Asma. I mean, we want to hear your stories, Auntie Asma, with particular pieces that you love, and I'm sure you have stories connected to those pieces. We'd love to hear one of those, if that's okay.
Difficult to say because in the last will be like your children. You love all of them. Yani you feel when you go walking in the rooms or you. I have a lot of storage for art. Yani mine. It's now it's I like more Arab contemporary art. More now interested. Recently, I have mostly I bought for mostly from Iraq and from Egypt and from UAE artists and also from different Arab world, North Africa, and from there. I start to, but the problem is my topic always connect together. It's always like the last one. I bought it in India when you invite us. Thank you for your invitation for the emerging artist Samita. When I went to visit the studio her Samita, yes, and when I hear her story and how he's suffering, her life very suffering, and emotionally immediately I bought one. Yani, that's why I saw her suffer in all her artists. Sometimes you connect with the story behind the scene, behind that. This is my problem, yani. And also when me and my husband always when we buy art and always he look for something more suffering and more it's reminder us how we are 50 years ago. We are a very simple, very difficult suffering life we have here. And always our topic, it's reminder us, we don't forget our past. Yani. We are not coming to collect all the thousand of dollar you put in the new wall, but it's all this coming after we have suffering and how we, in this country, the people how they create their country and how we reach now in 50 years. Now I'm sitting here and I talk about art and I talk about luxury life and I talk about how to invest in something. Still in UAE, people still didn't find the art is investment. They need more knowledge for that, yani. For especially for men. They need only the new generation. They understand it's the art. It's part of the investment, yani. But for us, first when I start, me and my husband, I buy it for enjoying. And one story I would tell you, one time me and my son, 40 years ago, I've been walking in Faubourg Saint-Honoré. I like the tapestry and this, the carpet, French carpet. And I went into the shop and I told him, I don't have money, only I have 10,000 franc. That time it's not euro. And I give it to you, I will go home. If my husband agreed to pay the rest, I will buy it. But if he didn't agree to buy it, I keep the 10,000 franc for you from present from me. And he agreed. And this guy now very important. And I saw them in Pad in London this time when I'm walking, and I saw his son. And he said, you remember the story between you and my father 40 years ago, and he passed away. His name Haji. And that's why it's always sometime we don't have money to buy the thing. Yani, that's why I want to say it. But sometimes, because I love it, I try hard with my husband to push him to buy this kind of, to hang it in the wall or to be part of your collector. Yani. It's the life, it's beauty. That's why you need to suffer, not easy. And that's why my advice for everybody, not meaning if you don't have the most expensive, meaning the most important. The most important, what you like it, and you have a vision. This art, it will be, one day it will be value for that. And it's good, thank God I have my daughter Amna. She's in that part to guide me, but never I listening to her. But always she guide me what I buy, what I should choose.
That's amazing. This kind of story is, I think, extremely important. I'd love to kind of hear from Masha in this connection as well. I know she's a young collector, and she's always looking at art in a certain budget, and she's very clear about what she wants to spend. And how do you kind of have this kind of clarity? How do you find pieces within your budget, and how do you find that which you would love, and you think that, okay, this is what I want to collect today, or this is what I'm going to come back to? How do you decide that?
Actually, I think it's important for every art. So it should have some depth. It should have some story. The artist should have some story behind. Like for sure that could I buy art from the like artist I know. It's how I start, like directly. But if I go to the gallery, I should have some relationship with the gallery. Like I feel connection with that artist. I start to like read a little bit about this, like, and then somehow it's happened. I speak with artists, then I love the artworks, and then I start maybe to buy like not a big piece, like smaller piece, or that could be also some print. And actually, I believe it's like if you have passion for like collecting and like have some story, you can find that pieces are really like maybe this day you became rich or like this artworks really grow in the price and no one know because like in the beginning like I'm very excited about the stories like of long life collectors, how they start, who knows, like maybe they bought few pieces and they got the passion for this. I don't know what my story will be later.
I think I have a similar story when I collected one of my first most significant pieces that I ever collected was a Mona Saudi, and I'm not sure if you know her. She's an incredible sculptor from Jordan who passed away a few years ago. And obviously, I didn't look at it as an investment at that point in time as well. But then the value of it today is huge, and I'm so glad. Obviously, I collected that piece. I'm sure all of you have stories like that, and I want to kind of touch on Salvatore's stories of visiting artist studios. I know he visits some incredible studios, and he has some incredible stories from then, and we'd love to hear some of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think almost all of my collection is from artists who I know. I think it adds that extra depth, as Masha was saying. Um, I love to know the idea behind it, something about the entire practice. So visiting the studios and just sitting amongst all the art, I feel like you get a little bit of the energy of that.
I always feel like when I'm in the artist studios, one of my favorite things to do and to be while being in this industry is going to these artist studios. And I feel like I'm a deeply spiritual person. You can see glimpses of divinity in them when they kind of create these incredible stories and these creations that are coming from them. You really feel kind of they are so blessed and and talented in their ways. It's just incredible to see them.
With Afra Al-Dahri, the Emirati female artist, at her studio. And there's so many pieces, and I love looking at the process that she does with the rope and her hair. And there was one piece, and she said, "This is my mother's favorite." And I said, "Okay, khalas, that means that if it's your mother's favorite, this is the one that I need because, I trust an Arab mom, like I trust Auntie Asma, like." So I said, if this is your mother's favorite piece, that this is the one that I need. And I still have it. And again, when Afra comes to my home and sees the collection, and she's able to have that connectivity with that piece as well. And so it's so nice to, again, have that energy of her mother loving this piece, and then that I'm able to have that as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I want to go back to Auntie Asma. Being an incredible and very well-known Emirati collector, how do you balance, and there's this kind of, I think, push in the UAE towards collecting Emirati artists, and there's some incredibly talented ones here. How do you balance kind of the collecting the Emirati artists versus that kind of international artist? How do you balance that?
I think, as our everybody said, that you need to support the emerging artists, also to support the environment, especially with Michelle here and Abu Dhabi, friend of Abu Dhabi, one of the guidance for us to buy from the emerging artists here. I'm happy I have Shamma here. So I'm happy Shamma. I have one of his. I bought one of her art. Your gallery. I'm happy to have it. And I bought a lot of emerging artists, Emirati. Inshallah, I wish for them to be more succeed. I will see between the art and between the novels and between literature how it will come, how the combination between all of this, how will, inshallah, it will be. And I think through Abu Dhabi art, one of encouraging for the investor or for the clients to at least to highlight about which one we can buy and this one. We need the guidance at least
We're very proud. Yeah, we're very proud that this was the first piece that Auntie Asma collected from us, the Shama's piece. And Shama is now gallery represented, and she just had her solo, and her solo is going on at the moment in Aisha Labar's gallery. So very proud of her as well. We're very proud to have shown her here in our gallery. I know that you're kind of interested and always looking to collect digital and NFT art, and we'd love to kind of hear from you in the sense of what do you really feel about digital art. It is a new medium that's kind of in the scenes, and people want to collect NFTs. We'd love to show some in the gallery at some point in time, but we'd love to hear from a collector's perspective. What do you think about it, and how do you go about collecting and looking at these things?
But I still believe, like any art, digital art will be established with time. Nowadays, it's a lot of difficulties, like the authenticity is one of them, but also now I still feel a lack of this conversation around, because like artists, when this topic like few years ago, you remember, everyone want to speak about NFTs. But when I try to buy, and I'm not related to cryptocurrency market or something, and then you start to think how you buy cryptocurrency, then how you put it on the wall. It's so many questions appear, and so if you like a gallery or like an artist, you should think for the collectors also, because this gap is very big, between like the artwork itself, which is the same. It should have the depth. It should have the artist should have some history. It should be nicely done. It should be complicated. In technique, it's all important. For any art. But I believe also nowadays, also the design of apartment, of the way we're living, is not that mature for the digital art. But in future, I think more robotics come, more artificial intelligence things, and art always reflect the what's going on around.
Thank you so much, Masha, for that kind of outlook, because I think we see so much digital art and we always question ourselves on, yes, it's a great question on how do you display them, but also great on how do you see the future value of these kind of pieces. And I think that's extremely important as well. I want to ask kind of a cheeky question next to all of you, and it's a bit of a cheeky one, just because I know that it would be difficult for me as a collector to answer it. Is there any piece that you've ever seen in your life as a collector that you regretted not buying? I'd love to hear the stories behind that. Let's start with Auntie Asma. I think she has a great one.
Always, sometimes you miss something beautiful, and I know it's the value of become. But sometimes when you're listening to your daughter or your husband, and you regret because you're listening to them. Yani, sometimes you should listening to yourself. Yani. And a lot. Sometimes we see something and we don't take it, and about the little money, maybe difference, and you said, no, I take cheaper. No, I wait for the last day of. Sometimes you are. When I always say, when your money in your pocket, you are the master. Yani. But in the end, when you go, somebody buy it. Yani. That's why you should follow yourself. You trust yourself, and when you see something and you like it, buy it. Don't wait till next day, maybe it will go and you regret all the time. Yani. It's really, especially when I saw it in somebody's house. Really, I close my eyes. I go there because I know it's mine in the beginning. Yani. It's, I think you should trust yourself. Yesterday, Ammar in my home, and he saw one table. It's from Crate carpet. Carpet shop, and it's Taj Mahal opposite. And I remember when I bought it, I said to my husband, I should buy this one. He said, okay. I buy for you because when you remember you die. Sometimes husband, it's Taj Mahal, it's but opposite. And when he came yesterday to my home, he said, how much that? I said, no. He said, 5 million. Oh my gosh, 5 million in my house. I don't know, it's the price. It's coming from 100,000 to 5 million. Yani. It's really never, I know only Ammar yesterday who told me it's cost like this. And it's Taj Mahal. It's when I saw it, I like the idea, the lover. about that one. It's worth it now, the money what I have in my home.
What a lovely story. I'm gonna get in the name of that artist soon. I'd love to hear from Salvatore, please, on a piece that you regret not buying.
But no, I think often I feel like there's always the next show. There's a reason that it wasn't there. So I do have a few like Google alerts for a few specific artists and pieces that wherever they might be at on auction or for sale or in a show, I will get an email to know. There's a few that I'm on the lookout because I missed it the first time, but I think typically I try and have no regrets.
What about you, Masha? Is there a piece that you feel like you saw and you regret not buying it?
Sometimes you also feel the moment is like, pass away. So you didn't do this, and then you also, I don't know. Then sometimes I feel regrets about such moments, and I feel maybe I back, and then I will do it in the future. Then sometimes I feel maybe this future never comes, so then I already lost this opportunity.
I think we can all learn valuable lessons from these stories. I'd like to go back to Salvatore and kind of like you have access, and we all have access now to so many art fairs, biennales, private circles, and you see so much. How do you navigate this kind of art scene right now? Like there's so much, as I'm sure similar to me, the more you get into it, the more you realize how much there is out there. How do you navigate this?
It's about going and seeing as much as you can, talking to as many people as you can, but then creating your own eye and your own perspective on it. I think recently I've really decided to focus on the niche of just collecting the Emirati and Tanzanian art, which is maybe silly a little bit to be geographically focused, but there's so much art in the world that I love, but I feel a closer personal kind of heart connection to those geographies and to get to know the artists from there. I also think building out a niche can be important. There aren't a lot of people who are collecting either of those, and so if you're building that, I think there's probably few bigger collections of Tanzanian art out there, which has then had a lot of people who become interested in African art to come to me to ask about what is happening in Tanzania. A lot of the artists will first come to me, and so I would hope that the collection can someday exist separate from me, and that it can be looked at as a time capsule of the Tanzanian art over the years. And I think similarly with the Emirati art, there's a lot more people collecting it, but it's still emerging. To have almost all of my collection be non-white and the majority of it to be non-male is pretty rare. And so I would hope that separate from my own identities, that it can exist as a really good collection of art from those geographies and really push the narrative of what is being produced in those countries and how the perspectives and the stories from those countries are being told through art.
Thank you. Auntie Asma, what about you? What do you think is the legacy that your collection is going to leave behind? And obviously it's not just the art, but also the antiques that you've collected and the stories that you've collected. What do you think is the legacy that you're going to leave behind? And I'd love to kind of, for you to advise the next generation of young collectors in the UAE, how would you kind of talk to them?
Mine sure to myself, my family, my daughter from now, she heritage everything. Already she took it for her. And I think, always I'm thinking to my house, I leave it open for people come and see, but is it worth it or not? Always I ask myself this question. Is it worth it to keep it for the country, to one of the residents, for the house people, to know the story about how, especially we are the first generation who start to build their collection and to have a different variety from different countries and different nationality and different and the influence of us. And when you come my home, it's not it's from like United Arab Emirates, not Emirati house, because from everywhere, and the influence from the friend, from the country we visit, from the idea of this country, the ideal of the president, Sheikh Mohammed, and before His Highness also Sheikh Zayed, Allah yarhamah, how he built this country. And it's that all influence in our home and in our tradition and culture. I wish one day, I don't know, my family, what they will do for my collection. Either they make it for the country or they keep it for them. I don't know until now. But I wish for another new collector, when they establish something, they study well what they want to buy. And the life now is very suffering, not easy to buy everything now. The life around us is many problems we have, many war and many things. I think it's also between these things, the people also difficult for them to go only for luxury. They think about another people. They didn't have food, they didn't have houses, they didn't have this thing. I think that in this time we are between the two. But I think I advise them to they study well and to collect, especially now with the taxes. I think we didn't have before in UAE this thing. Before the people, if, from the taxes they buy art, and one of the way from the tax away to take it. Still here we don't have these things, and I think it's coming now to invest in this kind of.
We really hope so. Thank you so much, Auntie Asma. So we're going to move on to Masha, but right after that, we're going to open the panel to questions from the audience. So if you want to start thinking about them as Masha answers them, that would be great. Masha, if you can answer, what is the legacy that you hope your collection will leave behind, and how would you kind of advise the young collectors of today?
I don't know. I want to my conversation. I start with my, let's say, collection. It really inspired the people to also start. Let's say, start by. Don't be scared. For sure, we see on the huge collections, very expensive one, but as I already told, we don't know what will happen. And now when I was looking on what I have, for the moment, it's a very personal story. I feel like a story about my connections here. Maybe it's the story which will be interesting with within the years. So how we live here in this moment, how, because I believe the market will grow, the museums is coming. And nowadays I feel like here, again, the collectors is very important, because here it's not that contemporary art museums. So the artworks now in the homes, yeah, mostly. So only this process is start, yes, they're in galleries, in homes. So it's important to show it, to spread the word, encourage people to continue this conversation. If I inspired someone, I will be happy.
Thank you so much. I think you've inspired all of us.
So today we see a lot of Instagram art galleries where they sell bejeweled mini Lamborghinis and dupe crosses. And I think a lot of the times when we talk about barriers to collecting, people talk about finances, but it's clear that there's a significant group of people with finances but no taste. So I was wondering, for those people, how would you suggest to build up an art education? Because it's not something that's really prioritized in schools unless you look for it. And Salvatore, you mentioned that you have a lot of friends that bring you into it, even though you don't work in the arts, you were attending art fairs. So for people who have never had access to that part of the world but are interested in buying art, how do you kind of pivot them from that kind of art to good art?
I think that a lot of people have different tastes. So if somebody does want to buy Ryan's or bejeweled, whatever you said, that's also fine. I wouldn't. I think Jeffrey Saltz, is that the art critic from New York? Yeah, he said one time you only need, I think it's 8 people to like your art for an artist to make a living from it. So you need 2 galleries, 2 curators, and 4 collectors, I think is what he said. And so it doesn't need to be liked by the masses. But to the second part of the question of the education, there's so much art out there and there's so many perspectives. So I go back to my 2 points of talk to as many people as possible, collect the information from them, but then make sure that you have your own voice in that.
The first things for me, it's the Oriental artist I bought from Deutsch. It's now when I saw it, I'm happy I bought it from that period, and now the price is very high. Sometimes it's the first you buy and you succeed, it's you encourage to buy more and more and more. I think it's You should trust your eye. Always, I believe, to trust your eye and your heart.
I think the first piece that I really got myself was from a young Emirati female artist, Faith Al-Mahari, who I actually haven't seen. I bought this maybe 8 years ago. I haven't seen anything from her since then, to be honest. But it was a watercolor, and it was a woman's face with like the traditional Emirati face covering, and it was framed as a mirror, and it was called Gaze. And the idea was that if you're looking at her, you have to look at yourself as well because of the mirror. And it was just something that I instantly loved and felt like had so much depth to it that I could like speak about in so many layers. And I had always been kind of around art growing up. Like my family's a lot of musicians, and then my friends here are a lot of artists. And it just felt like something that I wanted to see every day. And that I like any kind of art, whether it's literature or music or fine art, like, you know, physical art, that you have a different response to whenever you're happy or sad, or when you see it in different light. And I think that was the first piece that gave me that kind of complexity. And even though I haven't seen that artist since then, really, I still love that piece because it it opened my eyes to having my own perspective on a piece and having a connection to that. And so I always keep it pretty prominently in the collection.
Great. So I'm going to close it saying, you know, collecting is not just about acquiring something. It is about preserving, about sharing, about shaping the stories that outlive us all. Each collection, mine, Salvatore's, Auntie Asma's, Masha's, is a personal history of us, but together these collections shape cultural legacies. For those who have never collected before, perhaps today is the day that you see art differently, that a piece speaks to you in a way that it never has before. And for those who already collect, may you continue to find joy in every piece that you bring home. A collection is not measured by its size, but by the stories it holds and the legacies it leaves behind. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us here today. Thank you for a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for organizing.